Hello everyone, my name is Garima Bochra and my topic for discussion today is a case Gurunath versus Kamlabai. This is one of the important cases when one studies Hindu law and to be more specific, sources of Hindu law. In absence of any concept of law in Smritis or even when there is a conflict between two, while dealing a particular case, the court decides to use the principles of justice, equity, and good conscience. In this sense, the judge will consider the matter in a way that he finds more reasonable and logical. This is considered to be called as a modern source of Hindu law. And this was evident in Gurunath versus Kamlabai. So, first, the facts of the case. A man named Krishat Rao died in 1890, leaving behind two widows, Radhabai and Gangabai, with a son, Dattaraya. Dattaraya later died in 1913, leaving behind a widow, Sundarbai, and a son, Jagannath. Sundarbai died later that year, and their son died later in 1914. After a gap of 30 years, Gangabai, who was alive during the death of both her son and grandson, or in legal terms we call it survivorship, she adopted a son named Gurunath. In March 1944, Gurunath filed a suit for the possession of the property of Krishat Rao. This appeal rose in forma pauperis. Basically, this means the ability of an indigent person to proceed in court without the payment of usual fees. The respondents were the sons and grandsons of the first cousin of Krishat Rao. The main issue in this case was about the power of adoption of a widow. So, what were the main contentions of both the parties? The appellant contended that he was the son of Krishat Rao as he was adopted by Gangabai and therefore was entitled to his property. Whereas the respondents contended that Gangabai's right to adoption was seized as her son died. Coming to the judicial history, the trial judge gave his judgment in favor of respondents. The appeal filed in High Court was also in the favor of respondents. It was held that Gangabai's power of adoption was seized after her son died. It is important to note here that Gangabai, in her written statement, submitted that Radhabai, the first widow of Krishat Rao, gave her consent to the adoption. But during the proceedings in High Court as well as the trial court, no evidence relating to this could be established. Coming to the judgment. The Hindu Shastric law does not explicitly put any limit on a widow's power to adoption. This power can be practiced by her during her lifetime and when the necessity has arisen for the purpose of continuing the lineage of her husband. It was contended that Hindu Shastric law itself circles no limit on the exercise of this power. Yet, it has been judicially recognized that the power is not a limitless and absolute one. It comes to an end when another inheritor comes into the picture and it has become his duty to continue the lineage. The issue at what point of time widow's responsibility to continue a lineage of the husband comes to an end has been a matter of number of verdicts in the Indian High Court and the Privy Council. The point of contemplation is whether the restrictions laid down in these verdicts have been arbitrarily fixed and are not constructed on the principles and should be reviewed by the court. The two important cases are the verdicts of Privy Council arising out of adoption made by Srimati Chundra Bulle and decided in 1876 and 78. It was held that at the time when Chundra Bulle professed the exercise of her power of adoption, the power was incapable of execution on the ground that Bhavani had married and left a widow as his heir. In the year 1902, this question came up for consideration before the full bench of Bombay High Court in Ramakrishna Ramachandra versus Shamrao. It was held that where a Hindu dies leaving a widow and a son, and the son dies leaving a natural born or an adopted son, or leaving no son but his widow to continue the line or the lineage by means of adoption, the power of the former widow is extinguished and can afterwards be no longer revived. The principle was approved and applied by the Judicial Committee in Madana Mohana versus Purushottama Deo. The principle must be taken as applying so as to have brought the authority to adopt conferred on the widow to an end when the son originally adopted died after attaining a full legal capacity to continue the lineage either by the birth of the natural born son or by adoption to him of a son by his young widow. There were also few principles laid down in Amarendra Man Singh versus Sanatan. First, that the interposition of the grandson or the son's widow competent to continue the lineage by adoption brings the mother's power of adoption to an end. That the power to adopt does not depend upon any question of vesting or divesting of property. That the mother's authority to adopt is not extinguished by the mere fact that her son has attained a ceremonial competence. The result of these verdicts and others is that the power of widow to adopt comes to an end by the interposition of a grandson or the son's widow competence to adopt. Though the reasons for restricting this power may not be visible in any Shastric text, it was well established that in the absence of any Shastric text, the court and the judges have the power to decide the cases on the principles of justice, equity, and good conscience. And therefore, the appeal was dismissed. Thank you for watching.